let's get down to business and discuss Mulan. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about Disney's 1998 animated action-adventure comedy, Mulan. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Mulan stars the vocal talents of Ming-Na Wen, Eddie Murphy, and Wong, and was directed by the duo of Bradley Cook and Tony Bancroft. Very loosely based on the Chinese legend of Hua Mulan, this movie tells the story of Mulan, a teenage girl voiced by Ming-Na Wen, who impersonates a man in order to join the army in her ailing father's place. As a 90s kid, I grew up during one of the best periods of Disney animation, the Renaissance era. This stretched from The Little Mermaid in 1989 to Tarzan in 1999 and includes some of the most beloved films in animation history. So I was pretty lucky because I got to experience the majority of those movies in the theater. Plus, we had just about every other Disney animated movie on VHS. So between the big screen and those clamshell VHS cases, I was immersed in Disney for most of my childhood. I loved Disney movies, and I rewatched them incessantly. There were so many great movies, but two of them always stood out from the rest of the pack for me, and still remain my two favorite Disney films. My absolute favorite has always been The Lion King, but Mulan has been a close runner-up ever since it was released, and it's still one of my favorite movies of all time. Before Mulan, my go-to Disney movies were always the animal ones, because I used to find it hard to really connect with movies that focused on human characters. I know how ironic that sounds, but there was just something so unengaging about princess movies to me, and at that point, that's what most of the human movies were. Sure, there were plenty of female characters, but most of them filled the damsel in distress role. Mulan was a very different type of character. She was independent and didn't just wait around to be saved. In fact, she was the one doing the saving. She was funny and brave and very caring. She was the first truly strong female character I'd seen in a Disney movie. And so, as an 8-year-old girl, this movie meant the world to me. Even beyond the character of Mulan, this film's always had everything I could want in a movie. The story's fantastic, and despite being a Disney-fied version of the Ballad of Hua Mulan, it still captures the essence of the legend. We get a romantic subplot, but unlike the typical Disney movie, it's fairly diminished, and is actually used to progress the plot towards its climax. Rather than focusing solely on finding a husband, Mulan's instead concerned with family honor, protecting her father, and not losing herself to the conventions and expectations of the time. And even though the film is led by a strong female character, I've never viewed this as a girls' movie. In fact, I think this is one of Disney's most universally appealing films. Male, female, old, young, everybody has something to latch onto here. It's got a strong story, but it's also a very exciting story. There's a lot of adventure and plenty of action in the numerous war sequences. It gets pretty intense at points, and as a kid, borderline scary, possessing one of the most formidable foes of any Disney movie. The serious violence is almost all off-screen, but the implications of murder, death, and wartime destruction are seen everywhere, and directly impact the main characters in pretty emotional ways. Even beyond the war, there are a lot of emotional moments, especially regarding family and Mulan's relationship with her father. This film has some serious heart, and touches on a lot of important and impactful themes. But like I said before, this movie's really got everything. If it was just an action war movie, this would have been one of Disney's darkest and most thematically heavy films. But instead, I personally think this is one of the most fun and entertaining movies in their catalog. So how is that possible? It comes from the near perfect tonal balance. This movie has a lot of humor. I'm sure that bugs some legend purists, but it provides the levity that the story needs. And I've never found it to be too over the top. It's really the perfect amount to me. And it comes in quite a few different forms, which has made this a movie that I've found to be funny throughout my life. It's got some of the slapstick physical comedy you'd expect from a kid's movie, but thankfully it's not excessive. There's also a lot of what I'll call direct humor. You know, the jokes that are meant to be acknowledged as jokes by the audience, where there's almost a beat before the next line, so you have time to laugh. Now, that type of humor has its place, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't find most of that kind of stuff funny here, but where this movie has always comedically shined for me is with the more subtle moments. There's a lot of extremely funny situational humor, and a lot of really good reactionary moments from characters. And then there's plenty of great indirect humor in the dialogue. The kind of lines that just fly by in the midst of conversation or are muttered offhandedly that you might miss if you're not paying attention. And it's a lot of those lines that have stuck with me over the years. I have a tendency to quote movies a lot in everyday conversation, especially kind of obscure lines that nobody besides my dad could ever connect and understand. And Mulan is one of those endlessly quotable movies for me. The dialogue's great, but without a good delivery, it wouldn't be nearly as memorable as it is. And we get that delivery here. Mulan's got some great lines, but I can't forget to mention the other characters that helped to make this such a great movie for me. And after Mulan, my second favorite character is easily Mushu. Eddie Murphy really shines as sidekick animated animals, and I find him endlessly entertaining here. He definitely has most of the best lines in the movie, but he's not just comic relief, and is probably the character who has the most significant dramatic character arc. He also acts as a confidant to Mulan. I mean, she's got Cricky and her cow, too, but Mushu's the only one she can talk to and truly be real around in the midst of her deception. In addition to Mushu, you've got Shang, who in any other movie would have just been the brave war hero love interest. But here, he's the inexperienced leader who gets thrown into a situation he's not fully prepared for. He has to be inspiring and strong, but also faces his own tragedies in the midst of the war. So the development of his relationship with Mulan over the course of the movie provides a more emotional foundation to the story. Similarly, much of the movie's heart stems from the relationship Mulan has with her father. And even though he's not on screen for a ton of the movie, he's the catalyst for everything that's happening, and remains my second favorite Disney father after Mufasa. Then you've got characters like Yao, Ling, and Chen Po, who round out the cast with their upfront humor but underlying heart. Even though this film came out at the tail end of traditional animation and doesn't employ anything mind-blowing, I've always thought this was an extremely visually appealing movie. With the snowy landscapes and mostly gray-toned uniforms of the soldiers, it would be easy to assume that this would be a pretty dull-looking film. But it's actually vibrant. Splashes of red and gold pop out of the snow, like daisies, and it's actually a very lifelike animation style. There's this one shot of Mulan's hair comb in the mud in the foreground, with the gates blowing open and closed in the background, that's always looked phenomenal to me. Likewise, the sequence with the Huns coming down the mountain, especially when paired with the fantastic score, was always so impressive to me, evoking memories of the wildebeest stampede in The Lion King. And speaking of the score, wow. Really, all of the music in this film is top-notch. Disney's animated films have almost always been musicals, which can put people off because it is a little strange for characters to randomly start singing, but I kind of think that's part of the charm of Disney, and it's one of those nostalgic aspects of animated movies for me, especially from the Renaissance era. A war movie might not sound like a good fit for this musical style, but it really works, and this movie includes some of the most memorable Disney songs. Reflection is one of the best movie ballads out there, and this film also features my absolute favorite Disney song, I'll Make a Man Out of You. I know that Mulan isn't as universally loved as some other Disney movies are, but this is one that's been really important to me since I was a kid. I loved it back then, and I still love it now. Maybe even a little bit more than I used to, if that's even possible. And I'm sure my nostalgia for this film has a bit of a hand in my continued enjoyment of it, but even now, I truly think this is top-tier Disney, and one of the best animated movies they've ever made. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. As was the case when I reviewed The Lion King, I find it really hard to narrow down the pros, because I really do love basically everything about this movie. But for the sake of having an actual pros and cons section, I'll briefly touch on some of the biggest positives for me. Pro number one is Mulan. Now, I'm not trying to cop out and say the whole movie's a pro here. I'm talking about the character Mulan. She's simply fantastic, and as weird as it might sound, I'm so thankful that I had her as an animated role model when growing up. Strong female characters are getting to be the norm nowadays, which is awesome, but in 1998, it was still pretty rare. We had started to move away from the pure damsel in distress princesses at that point. Characters like Belle, Jasmine, Meg, and especially Pocahontas were big steps towards independent female Disney characters. But all of them were still hinged on a love story and the need for a big male hero to come save the day. Mulan was the first to truly turn that story format on its head, and she was a character that I really looked up to as a result. My second big pro is the comedy. Now, obviously, comedy's really subjective, so maybe this just happens to strike the right comedic chord for me, or maybe it helped to shape that comedic chord, but I find this movie entertaining and funny no matter how many times I watch it. And trust me, I've watched it a lot of times. It's got a great tonal balance, and the humor brings some much needed levity and fun to an otherwise thematically dark story about war. Again, that might not be something everybody wants from a story like this, but it's the perfect fit for me. We've got a handful of superbly funny characters, including the powerful, the pleasurable, the indestructible Mushu. But the humor extends beyond characters to physical comedy, situational humor, and an endlessly quotable script. The third major pro is the music. It's all just so memorable for me. Like I said before, nostalgia surely has a hand in this, and I bet watching the movie literally hundreds of times in my life doesn't hurt either, but this music just sticks with me in the same way that the Lion King soundtrack does. Just like that one, even the weakest of the songs here are among my overall Disney favorites. Reflection is an emotionally powerful ballad, True to Your Heart is a catchy outro song for the credits, and A Girl Worth Fighting For is a fun satirical play on some of the film's themes. But for me, nothing can top I'll Make a Man Out of You. And it's honestly still a song that gets stuck in my head pretty regularly. As far as cons go, I really don't have anything substantial. Just like with The Lion King, the only issues I have with the film are incredibly minor nitpicks. I'm not the biggest fan of slapstick physical comedy, so there are a few moments with Yao, Ling, and Chen Po that aren't my favorite, but they aren't enough to drag anything down for me. There are also a few moments that feel a bit rushed or sudden, like the tonal transition at the end of the A Girl Worth Fighting For montage, but this is mostly a consequence of the film's short runtime, and again, not something that hinders my enjoyment of the movie. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Mulan or any of the films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Mulan 5 out of 5 paws. If you've watched this far, I'm sure this isn't really a surprise to you. Mulan is one of my favorite Disney movies, second only to The Lion King, in a position it's held since 1998. I truly love this film, and it's one of those top movies that I could watch over and over and over again and never get tired of. I would recommend Mulan to just about anybody. This is one of Disney's best films, and it has something to offer nearly anyone. A strong and independent female character should be a draw for basically anybody, but young girls will probably be the most impacted by Mulan's character. This is far from just being a girls' movie, though. It's got a great story filled with action, adventure, war, comedy, and even a touch of romance. And its strong thematic core, emphasized by Mulan's relationship with her father, will touch anybody who's ever had a kid or been a kid. If you liked Mulan, I would recommend Pocahontas. It's another admittedly Disneyfied and sanitized version of a true story that came out as part of Disney's Renaissance era. The story's quite a bit different, though there are prominent family themes, but my major reasoning for this recommendation is Pocahontas herself. She was easily the most independent, resilient female character in a Disney movie prior to Mulan. I would also recommend you check out Moana, and not just because it's another M first name Disney movie. It's got some thematic similarities, featuring an independent teenager who takes it upon herself to venture out on an adventure in order to save her people, with the help of a guardian and some comedic animal sidekicks. And I've also got to recommend The Lion King. These two movies are inextricably linked in my mind because they're my favorites, but there are actually a ton of similarities too. Strong family duty themes, a great tonal balance with plenty of humor, an awesome father figure, fantastic memorable songs, and Nala might be a lion, but she's still a strong, independent female character. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Mulan? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, who's your favorite strong female character? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe or add it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainely Movies, the way life should be.